With Borderlands 4 on the horizon, I think it's time to start talking about what we want to see in the game. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it, dude. Also, I'm not ranking these or putting them in a specific order either. Okay, for the first thing, a good story. Now, even though a lot of us play the game for the first time and, absorb the story, and then later on we just don't really care for the story at that point, we just play for the gameplay, having a good story does still go a long ways. Even if you're playing for the gameplay, subconsciously the story's still there, and that can still play a factor into your motivation or demotivation into playing through the game. So, what is a good story? I couldn't tell you, I'm not a writer, but just don't have it drag on for too long. Don't have the player stand around waiting for dialogue, just dumping words on them while they're just standing around doing nothing. One way I did see to combat this is to have the objective pop up as the NPC's talking to you. For example, in BL4, let's say that Claptrap's like, hey, minion, can you go collect 1,000 rocks for me? And then he goes off with the whole like, yo, these rocks are very important and blah, 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 blah. While he's blabbering away, you can go off and do the objective. Please don't have the player standing around waiting for dialogue to pass before they can do anything. In fact, most of the time when this is going on in Borderlands 2 or even Borderlands 3, we are just waiting for dialogue to pass, so we'll just like, go shopping or play the slot machines. That only works for so long before it becomes a chore. So have a good story flow, good villains, good gameplay, and minimize the player standing around doing nothing. Story replayability is a big major thing in the game, and if you want players to replay your 4 to 6 characters, you gotta have a good flowing story. Alright, I could talk about story stuff for way too long here, but we gotta move on. So, next thing, dedicated drops. You've heard me talk about this a lot, like for real. Dedicated drops are the main reason I love this franchise, and it's also a major reason why I love building characters from scratch. So, if you're not familiar, dedicated drops are a specific spot where you can farm for a specific item. For example, in Borderlands 2, Savage Lee will always drop the Herald at a 10% chance. Bull will always drop the Fastball at a 10% chance too. And why I think this is important is because it does break up your linear playthrough. Instead of rushing straight to the content and just getting your loot piles from bosses and just taking whatever and moving on from there, you get to go out on these cool little mini adventures and power up your character one piece of gear at a time. And not to mention, you do side missions, which a lot of people don't touch if it's not worth it. For example, let's say you talk to Bob McBob and he gives you a side mission. If that side mission is a fetch quest and you get money and XP at the end of it, 9 times out of 10, people do not ever touch that mission again. But if you tie in a unique boss at the end of the mission that drops a unique item, or even give the mission a unique mission reward, then players might be a little more tempted to actually go out and do the missions. But dedicated farming does not have to be tied to only pick up mission, get unique boss, get drop, but it can also be tied to things in the world, like for example in BL2 you have the puddle for the Let's Go, and then you have a random box in the dust that can spawn in 5 locations for the Gwen's Head, and you even have the Jacob's Item Grave in the Fight for Sanctuary DLC where you can get the Thompson. There is so much creative freedom for doing dedicated drops the right way, and I don't see any downsides to it. You have players going back through your big beautiful maps, exploring again, trying to find secrets and, new bosses just hanging out. And that's what makes Borderlands so Borderlands to me, Alright, next up, number 3 or number 7, whatever you want to do, count down, count up. Legendaries being rare. I know the community is 50-50 on it, or 75-25, 25-75, I don't know. They're split. But in Borderlands 3, legendaries happening all the time just doesn't feel special. I know it's been regurgitated by a lot of people millions of times over the years, and I do get it. I don't mean this in a negative way, but I know that people have school, or they have to go to work, or they have family they have to take care of. Like, there's things in real life that's more important than video games. So having legendaries be more common does work out in some people's favors, but it also has the inverse effect of being a very negative thing too. If a legendary is not rare, then why is it considered a legendary then? At that point, it should be purple rarity, or even blue rarity. Like, there's a rarity tier for a reason. Also, rarity does give you something to chase after. Something being desirable is not a bad thing. It gives you a reason to jump on the game and grind out your farms. But if you don't get said item in a specific time frame, then it's not entirely a bad thing. You now have a reason to jump on the next day and hopefully get the item you're looking for. And then when you finally get it, you get that hit of dopamine, you're like, yes, I got it, heck yeah. And it really is a great feeling when that happens. Now, I don't want you to think that I don't want legendaries to drop at endgame. Like when you kill a raid boss or something, you should be getting like rewards from it. Like 2, 3 legendaries, whatever. But for doing a very casual activity that only takes a couple of minutes, in my opinion, you should not be rewarded just for a very small time dump into the game. And now, I know some people will point out dedicated drops being like too common or too rare. I'll be honest, it's a bias. It's a thing that we've, adapted to with Borderlands 1 into 2 into 3 into pre-sequel, all that kind of stuff. But as a longtime fan starting on Borderlands 1 on release day, all the way up until now, I truly do feel like, from my point of view, the ideal drop odds is about like 10, maybe 15%. And then for a raid boss, you know, something really tough to take down, maybe a little bit higher. I just don't want to be sifting through legendaries every single kill. I don't know, you guys have to let me know what you think about that below, but that's just my take on it. Moving on here, Pearlescence, we got to talk about it. Borderlands 1, Pearlescence were introduced, they were amazing, they were awesome, they were really rare. Borderlands 2 brought it back, but then they were okay for early UVHM, but then they just like fell off hard because of scaling. Bad scaling. So they lost their charm. And then from that point on, we just did not have them return. I don't know, they just were tainted. And I truly do believe they could bring them back and make them way, way better. In fact, tie it behind endgame. Don't have it drop early game at all, just endgame only. And of course, they have to be super duper rare. You know, if you grind for it, it's going to take a lot of grinding. Now, over the years, there has been a lot of talk about like what if pearls came back? And if they were truly the top tier, best of the best item rarity, then wouldn't it be pretty overpowered if you just had a full set of like guns, shields, grenades of like Pearlescence? And this is something that has been stuck with me over the years, and I've been like shifting my opinion on it. And I truly do think if they go the Destiny route where they have the one equipped slot for the, well, in this case, Pearlescent rarity, then it could work out fair. For example, if I have on a Pearlescent gun, then I cannot equip a Pearlescent shield, or a second Pearlescent gun. I can't do that. Or if I put on a Pearlescent grenade, then I can't put on a Pearlescent shield or a Pearlescent gun. You only get one equipped on your character at a time. It would open the doors towards, you know, gearing your character in the perfect way, and it would also offer a lot of diversity for builds. Having that decision of like what goes where is a very important thing for your build. And when you're limited on that for Pearlescent rarity, it would make the item feel much more significant and make you choose wisely about how you want to go about your builds. Now, I know not everybody's going to be a fan of that idea, but that's just how I feel about it. And I do want to mention that they don't have to make a Pearlescent. I would prefer if they did as a nostalgic thing, but that is a very biased take. If they just have a higher rarity than Legendary, I'd be cool with that. Make it rare, make it special, and make it endgame only. Put it in a raid boss pool. Speaking of raid bosses, let's move on to, I guess, number 5, raid bosses. They have to be a thing at release. It was a very weird thing to do in Borderlands 3 to not have any raids at release. We need an endgame activity. As for what the bosses are and what they do, I'm not going to get into that. I feel like that Gearbox does a pretty good job at that nowadays, and just hopefully they don't have too much standing around. You know, immune phases are not very fun if you're not doing anything. And then also don't drag on the boss fight for too long with the same mechanic over and over. We saw that for Anathema the Invincible in Borderlands 3. And jumping platform to platform was super cool, but dude, 9 or 12 phases of that is way too long. So yeah, good boss fight, good flow, don't drag it on, cool mechanics, raid bosses at release. Hopefully we can see that. Well, that perfectly leads into the next part, which is raid boss related, so takedowns. I'm sad we only got 2 of them in Borderlands 3, I would have expected a few more. But dude, Malawan Takedown was one of the best pieces of content, replayable pieces of content we have ever had for Borderlands. Now, even though I don't play a lot of BL3 today, when I was on the game, I did love that. It was like one of my favorite activities. Now, this also goes for the takedowns, but Guardian Takedown went on for way, way too long. Have it be a little bit more short, a little more sweet, and there's literally infinite possibilities you could do with a takedown. You can make it Western theme, you can make it space theme, you can make it another CEO. I don't know, you're taking on Tedior or something. Heck, it doesn't have to make logical sense. You go into the mind of Tina or the mind of Claptrap and they're just like wacky takedowns. It is like, for real, infinite possibilities here. The formula is already perfected. You run through, you mob, you get a mini boss, take down mini boss, mob a little bit more, conclusion to a lot of mobbing, and then you take on the raid boss at the end. It just works. Bring it back. For number 7, DLC characters. Now, the 4th skill trees we got in Borderlands 3 were something new, something interesting, but honestly, I would have loved to play a new character instead. I still remember jumping on Creek for the first time in Borderlands 2, and oh my goodness, that was an experience. I loved it. You get 3 brand new skill trees, new synergies, 1 new action skill, or I guess if we're going to BL3 route for Borderlands 4, maybe we have 3 action skills again. But when you introduce a new DLC character, there's incentive to start a brand new character, go through the story again, build them from scratch, learn how they flow. It is a great experience. Oh, and not to mention, dude, the voice lines. That helps you immerse into the character, feel the character, you know? But going back to the 4th skill tree route, like, I really hope they don't do that again. You can literally just load up a max level character, check out the skill tree, dump all your points into everything, and you don't really get that experience of getting one skill point at a time on a new game run, and slowly learn the character and how they feel as you progress. I don't know, I found that kind of weird, and honestly, DLC characters had a way to go for me. So yeah, at least 2 DLC characters, make them unique, make them interesting. And if that were to happen, I would be very happy. Alright, it goes without saying that we need good optimization at launch. This game needs to run well. Give us, graphical settings that can be adjusted to extremely low if our rig cannot run it. I don't want to see hitching in my game. I don't want to run around and just drop frames. I don't want enemies to shoot me in the face with splashy weapons and then I drop frames again. I want a smooth, stable flow of FPS. In gaming, I know this is a very difficult thing to achieve, but this time around, I really hope they monitor it better and adjust it as they go along. Fix stability issues. Hopefully they do it fast and they get it right. But yeah, a stable, well-optimized game. When BL3 first came out, I literally just upgraded my PC to the, current standard PC of that day. This would have been 2019, right? And of course, I looked at the specs for the game and then I said, oh hey, my PC can run it, cool. But when I launched the game, hoping to have everything on Ultra and look, vibrantly great, the game was hitching, lagging, combat just like drop frames. I couldn't open my inventory without dropping frames. It was just like, oh man, like that is such a bad feeling. So I was pretty much forced to play on medium quality for everything if I wanted to have smoother gameplay. And even then, I still drop frames. Like Borderlands 3 was not well optimized. However, when Borderlands did drop, for my rig, the game did feel better. Like this is the same engine as BL3. But yeah, the game felt better, it ran better, it just did not drop as much. It still dropped, but it was definitely a lot better. So yeah, well optimized game for Borderlands 4. Hopefully. Moving on here to number 9, good endgame scaling. Please, please for the love of God, do not just infinitely scale this number up. OP 10, Mayhem 11, Chaos 100, that was, I don't know what they were thinking. It's okay if we only have 3 difficulty levels at the end of the game. Let's just make up a random difficulty name for Borderlands 4. We're gonna call it Insanity Level. So we have Insanity Level 1. It's gonna be a little bit more tough than your base game difficulty. And then I would prefer, this is like a me thing again, but I would prefer to earn the difficulty. So do some challenge, do some event, takedown, DigiPeak style thing, maybe possibly, but not too long. And then if I beat said challenge, you unlock your Insanity Level 2. And then do it again and change it up for Insanity Level 3. From there, it caps out. Do not have it blowed up higher and higher. The franchise is notorious for adding so many levels that, scaling falls apart. Items stop working, we go through nerf and buff apocalypse again. I wouldn't want to see that again. Now, I should have mentioned it earlier, but I wasn't a huge fan of a slider for difficulty. I understand it, but I've always found like just maxing out your slider to maximum difficulty and then doing a cheesy farm for some fast gear is just not really great. To me, I've always found it better if you can like overcome said challenge to earn your said difficulty. I don't mean this in a negative way, but if you can't beat the challenge, then you're not ready for the difficulty. I do get it though, but for example, the DigiPeak, right? If you die halfway through, like, that is something maybe you should learn from, and the next time you take on said area, you don't do the same mistake again. But yeah, it does suck that you get set back and then you have to do it all again. Just practice, you get better, and then you take on harder challenge and overcome that. Also, no more modifiers, please. I do not want to be doing acrobatics on the battlefield. Like, I want to fight the enemy in front of me, not the environment around me. Hopefully they don't take that approach going into Borderlands 4. Also, for the endgame difficulty, I would like to see more than just, bloat up the HP, bloat up the shield, bloat up their damage. Instead, enemies get like bonus stats, maybe a little bit more reload speed, a little more movement speed, maybe a brand new attack. It would add a lot more and be a test for your reaction time, and possibly offer some faster, more exciting gameplay. Finally, at number 10, more movement tech. Borderlands 3 got this right. Sliding, mantling, I love it. It makes combat more dynamic, more fluid, more enjoyable. Like, it's such a cool feeling when you slide over to a piece of cover and, shoot the enemy from behind the cover. That is sick. Personally, I think it's enough just to have sliding and mantling in BL4. But come on, it's the next game, so let's have some more stuff, right? Now, I've seen it in Titanfall, but the first game that really gave me the idea was from Mirror's Edge, and that is having limited wall running. Think about it, you're fighting a random enemy, and let's say their crit spot is on the back of their head. You could be like, oh hey, there's a building to my right side. Let me wall run up the building a bit, jump over the enemy, and blast their crit spot as I fall down. That would be so cool. Not to mention, this is for getting around the game faster too. Let's say you're farming a boss and like you could either take the right path, which is a very long running grounded path, or you take the left path where you have to like, you know, wall run over a hole, but it's a much shorter path to the boss. That gives you options, variations, and there's so much more they could do with this. I mean, they can tie it into side missions, you know, go over there and get that thing and go over the hole or whatever, right? Or this is another thing that somebody did bring up. I never thought about this myself, but grappling could be really cool too if done right. I wouldn't be a fan of just grappling everywhere at all times, but instead having like special grappling spots. For example, you're on floor 1 and you got to get to floor 3. So you look up, you see the grapple, you grab it, you get up there. And then maybe, you know, you don't get all the way up so you can like mantle the rest of the way up. Or just go into your wall run and just finish the climb. Now it's really hard to word it out, but this is a very fast, you know, multi-set of actions. And if done right, the movement in the game could be done so well. One more I do want to mention that I'm not the biggest fan of, but I do understand, is the ability to double jump. I know it's a major thing for some games, and heck, we even had it in the pre-sequel, but if you have wall running, mantling, and grappling, I don't think you would really need double jump. But maybe if it's done right, it could work with all this other movement tech. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan of it. Anyways, that's going to be 10 things I would like to see in Borderlands 4. I probably could list another like 50 things, but I'm just going to keep it short and sweet for this video. Even though this is kind of a long video, but I'm just talking. But yeah, be sure to comment down below what you guys would like to see in Borderlands 4, anything that comes to mind. And that's going to be it for this video. So hey, thanks for watching guys, have an awesome day, and I will see you next time. Peace out.